Rick Bozich from WDRB.com along for the ride. Lots of stuff to talk about, Rick. Lamar Jackson, the former Louisville quarterback, man, I was thinking they were going to get it done this year, and the offense went away.
Yeah, I think their offensive coordinator called a terrible game. They were one of the better running teams in the NFL all year. They didn't run the ball very well on their first series, and Kansas City scored, and it was almost like they panicked and said, we can't run the ball anymore, and got away from it. Lamar played just an average game, had a terrible interception in the fourth quarter when he threw into triple coverage. And, their defense was supposed to be the best defense in the NFL, and they gave up 2 early touchdowns to the Chiefs. So then the Ravens were playing behind the whole game, and they had those 4 stupid personal foul penalties. So you're not going to do all those kinds of things against the best quarterback in the NFL and beat him, because Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL.
Mahomes is the man,
Yeah.
no doubt, and he's starting to tread on it's the most overused word in sports. Well, that's the most overused. The most overused phrase in sports is the most overused blank. But he's getting close to, how many Super Bowls has he won? 2 or 3?
2.
It's only been
third, first back-to-back.
That would put him in elite company.
Yeah, I don't know how many. Montana has multiple. Brady has multiple. Terry Bradshaw. I mean,
back to back. Back to back is difficult.
Back to back and 3 in total. Yeah, I mean, you're getting up there. He's at Roethlisberger, Elway category right now.
But he's young. Manning had 2. He's still in the prime of his time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the problem that they have is with him making all that money, they got to find ways to get him enough offensive talent to go around him. They're not as good as they were at receiver. But, when you watch him play, he plays the game differently than other quarterbacks. He stands there and he has incredible confidence and poise in the pocket. And it's like he's sitting there like calling out plays. He reads the defense so well, and good ball. Bless you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, he's a dude. And my favorite team, the Chicago Bears, traded up in the draft so they could not pick him.
I know you're a Reason guy, so I did not know for sure. But all right, well, let me ask you this, since you are a Bears fan. How about the job that Kevin Warren's doing with the Bears?
Doing okay.
And I don't say that by he's doing a great job. I was being facetious.
They still haven't decided where they're going to put their new stadium. They're sticking with the same coach. The GM's done a good job making trades and getting draft capital, so they just have to decide whether they're going to stick with Justin Fields or trade Justin Fields and go with the USC guy, Caleb Williams. I don't know.
College basketball, another fun year. I think this is going to be another fun tournament. Not that they never aren't, but this is going to be, I think, a second year where who gets the Final Four? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to stand behind UConn and maybe Houston. The other 2 spots are definitely going to be upset picks for me. I have no idea. But last night, North Carolina goes down. Number 5, Tennessee goes down, which it's not like we expect them to go undefeated the rest of the year. But and North Carolina lost on the road. So that's not huge. Tennessee loses at home to a South Carolina team who they're like a week off of upsetting somebody else. I can't remember.
Kentucky.
There you go. So
yeah, I mean, Lamont Paris, the coach of South Carolina, is in the front row right now for Coach of the Year. I mean, this is his second year there, and I think they're 19-3. Former IU assistant coach Tim Buckley's on that staff. They've done it, the new way. They've gotten a bunch of grad transfers, older grad transfers. They're a very physical team, and I was surprised that Carolina lost, even though it was at Georgia Tech. They only lost by a point, but Carolina was the last unbeaten team in the ACC. So that's now we're going to have to hear about Carolina and Duke the rest of the week, because that's Saturday. But I agree with you. I noticed you didn't mention Purdue. I'd say Purdue is probably in that group too. in terms of a Final Four threat. I'd say Houston, Purdue, and UConn. But it's none of those teams. I wouldn't bet at all with any authority that any of those teams to win the national championship. If you said
Nobody has authority to win the
somebody
national
said you
championship
get,
right now.
if somebody told you can have Houston, UConn, and Purdue or the field, what would you take?
If I could have one of those three,
No, you could have all three of them or the field.
boy, that's tough. But it would be stupid to not take the field. It would be a dumb bet. So I would have to take the field out of relative to the lack of intelligence that I have. But I still like I like Houston and UConn just because I think they're going to continue to get tougher and grittier as the season progresses. But Houston has got some deficiencies, no doubt. But UConn is but repeating here, we're talking about repeating right there. The UConn to repeat as national champion hasn't happened since Florida, right?
That's correct. Florida, 2006, 2007. Remember this, a year ago at this time, UConn had just lost 4 out of 5, and people were jumping off the UConn bandwagon. And then after starting on January 31st, today, they got hot and they won 15 of their last 17 and won the national championship. So things can change. People can find their groove. Injuries are going to be a huge part of it. Who's going to stay healthy? We saw that last night for Indiana, as you mentioned, with Malik Renew and Xavier Johnson going down. You don't know when they're going to be back. And fortunately for IU, Anthony Leal had his best game and saved them.
Yeah, I'll tell you one team that I would not pick to win it is Kansas. They have just been every chance they give you that you get to let you down, they have done it.
They're not as good on offense as they have been in recent years, and I think they thought Hunter Dickinson was going to be, the answer, and he really hasn't been. They've lost 3 of their last, 7. 3 of their last 7. They beat Oklahoma State last night. They've got Houston at home on Saturday, which will be a good game. But I agree with you. I don't see Kansas. I mean, there's so many teams that are a threat to get to the Final Four. I don't think they're good enough to win all 6.
And while Purdue is always a threat, their recent history has shown, I don't know, those, the team 3 years ago has nothing to do with this team. The team 2 years ago has nothing to do with this team. But it's kind of hard not to look at 40 years of actually of 120, 30 years of basketball. They've been to the Final Four twice. And so it's hard to ignore that. But and the fact I was just talking about this earlier, if I would have said that halfway through the Big Ten season, what would you bet who would be in first place of the Big Ten? And the fact that it's not Purdue is a little surprising. And they've got some do or die games coming up for them this week. As a matter of fact, Northwestern and Wisconsin.
Yeah, Northwestern at home tonight, which is a payback game for that game they lost on December 1st, and then at Madison on Sunday. And it's interesting that the Big Ten schedule makers must have had a hit Wisconsin was going to be good, because Purdue plays its last game of the year at home against Wisconsin on the final Sunday of the regular season. That could be for the Big Ten title. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Purdue's schedule, though, after Wisconsin's pretty easy. And they got Indiana at home, should win. Minnesota at home, should win. At Ohio State, Ohio State's in the tank. Rutgers at home, should win. At Michigan, Michigan's terrible. Michigan State at home. The last 2 are tough, Illinois and Wisconsin. So, yeah, I'm not going to pick Purdue to win the national championship because I still don't think they have the good enough guards.
Are you going to pick them to win the Big Ten Conference?
Yeah, I think I will. I think Wisconsin will slip up at some point. Let me look and see. Wisconsin have any tough games? They have to come to Bloomington?
Yes,
they do. In February, last Tuesday in February. They've got to go. Their road games are at Nebraska. They could lose that tomorrow night. Michigan, they'll win. Rutgers on the road, probably win. At Iowa, they could lose. At Indiana and at Purdue. So they're going to lose a few there.
It's going to be an exciting end to the season. Indiana, of course, last night with an important win to them. I do not, by any stretch of the imagination, think that this is a what I would call a season-saving win. I'm not. I don't see a path to the NCAA tournament for Indiana, no matter what. But they're an end to a better season, an NIT possibly is definitely within their reach. Of course, again, we have to wait to see what comes of the injuries from last night. But at the same time, we saw some performances that may ultimately help them. Anthony Leal with a gigantic night, of course, but that's the first time in 4 years, so you can't expect that again. But a 13-point performance for him. Good night shooting the three ball for him, which is of crucial importance for Indiana. But not only that, I mentioned this earlier, and the thing Todd Leary always gets upset about with Indiana is it's not the fact that they miss three-pointers, it's that they don't take enough. And last night they put up 22 attempts, which is about double their normal output. And it's the same exact amount of threes that attempted by Iowa. Indiana hits 8 of those for a 36%. And you will take that all day, every week, twice on Sunday.
I agree. I mean, the stat that jumped out at me from the loss to Wisconsin, was it Wisconsin when they didn't make a three?
The very last,
previous game. No, Illinois. It was Illinois. I'm sorry.
Illinois game, 0 for 9.
0 for 9. It's the 0 is bad, the 9 is worse, because that tells you that it's not a priority. And I'm not saying it has to be your number one priority, but it's got to be a bigger priority than that, that you're getting guys 3-point shots. And you saw Liam McNeely, I think, play over the weekend, and I hope he doesn't think he's coming into an offense that's only going to take 9 3-point shots a game, because I wouldn't think he'd be happy with that.
That's not what his coach thinks. I can tell you that, because one of the and I wish I would have thought to have had that clip ready, but
Kevin Boyle
said that it was a good decision for Liam to come to Indiana, and you all can catch this full interview at Indiana Sports Beat's YouTube page. But he says because they're going to run some action for him, they'll run some stuff for him. And I was sitting there thinking, boy, I was thinking, have you watched him play? I didn't say anything, but as soon as he said that, I was like, well, they better, because Liam can shoot. And Liam McNeely is a smart player. He doesn't force things. I've talked about this. I saw him play 3 games over the weekend. Their second game, he didn't score. He was 0 for 5. But he didn't force anything. He didn't have to. He stayed within the flow of the game and still was a part of the game. 8 rebounds, 4 assists. So he knows when to do it and when not to do it. But he can definitely shoot and is not afraid to shoot. And I was thinking, man, if Indiana had Mackenzie Mbako on one side, you've got Liam McNeely on the other. Boy, if they had 2 really good guards in between, and Kalel Ware or Mackenzie Mbako or Malik Renew, that's a good starting lineup, but very different from what we've seen from Indiana in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, that's the great unknown for Indiana, is how many of those 3 guys are going to come back. 1, 2, 3, or none. And I don't know. You never know in today's day in terms of who's going to go pro, even though they might be projected not to be picked in the first round or at all, or who's going to go in the transfer portal. If they got Ware, Renew, Mbako, and McNeely all there, then yeah, they've got a really quality front court, because I'm sure they will add another piece out of the portal for some depth. They probably need a stronger option as a backup starting center. But I don't know what that's going to be, or whether they get a recruit, whether they would get Queen. But, going back to last night's game, shorthanded, fell behind, had a big lead, lost it, didn't lose your cool. Huge best shot of the year that Gabe Cupps has made. That was the first shot he took the whole game, right? That was,
yep.
It was
gigantic.
Yeah. After Iowa, I guess that was a drawn up play, but I mean, that was a high risk play to throw a cross court pass to a guy who barely had room in the corner to throw up a shot. I mean, that seemed like a panic play to me. But the guy made the shot, Sanford. But yeah, it's they got to beat Penn State, and then they go on the road and have, I think, Ohio State and Purdue in that order. Is that right? And
Yes,
Ohio
sir.
State's not. They're the same kind of team as Indiana, up and down. You don't know what you're going to get every night. So that's a game, they could win. I'm sure they won't be favored, but they could go into Columbus to win. Ohio State's lost, I think, several home games this year already.
And that's one of the few games that remains for Indiana that they could, quote unquote, steal at Ohio State. You're not going to go into West Lafayette and win. You might go to Penn State.
Ohio State's lost 6 of 7, Jim, and they got Iowa on Friday. So yeah, I mean they could win that game. I mean, I'm starting to hear grumbling about Chris Holtman right now.
Well, he hasn't done anything. He has not. I mean, he has done nothing that's been above okay. That's been their
last year, right?
Yes.
Last year they missed the tournament. Then the year before that, I think they got in the tournament and lost to Villanova. So, I mean, yeah, he hasn't done anything, and he's had some pretty good recruits there. He's gone through some pretty good players. So
hey, I know who Ohio State could get.
Who could they get?
Lil Rhodey.